Okay, in part 2, we continue with chapter 12. You'll remember that in part 1, we talked about organizing the main part of your speech, the body of your speech. Now let's talk about the introduction. So you want to get your audience's attention right off the bat. You might make a statement that's very provocative to get their attention. You can start with a thoughtful quotation. You might take some kind of an action, although for most persuasive speeches, you might demonstrate something, I suppose. You might have a short story or a joke. Ask the audience a question to get them thinking about your topic, but you need to do something to get the audience's attention. You also need to establish relevance, why this topic is important to the audience. And you need to establish your credibility. What do you know about this topic? You're just a student. So explain that you've done your research. You might have personal experience with it. If so, explain your personal history or experience with the topic and why it's important to you, and that's why you want to persuade people to do something. In the Adderall example, maybe you had a sibling who developed a drug problem because they were using Adderall without a prescription. So that gives you some immediate credibility, it hits close to home. If you don't have any personal experience with it, that's okay. You are doing your research, so you can explain to the audience that you've done a great deal of research on this topic, and you'll share with the audience what you've learned. And then again, in the introduction, you want to state your thesis that we covered in part 1 of chapter 2. So your thesis statement needs to be in your introduction. So you have your introduction, we covered the main body, and now let's talk about the conclusion. You need to summarize what your goal statement was and review your main points. You've heard the saying, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So you tell them what you're going to tell them in the introduction. Then in the body of your speech, you tell them. And then in your conclusion, you tell them what you told them. So I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but it works. You tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. Then finally, you want to kind of seal the deal or clinch. So you want them to take action. Provide an appeal, that you want them to do this. Make a request. This is what I'm asking you to do. Use some vivid imagery to get your point across. Now for your speech, you need to have a works cited page. So down here, you need to have a works cited page in MLA style, Modern Language Association style. These are some examples over on the right of what that looks like. They all go in, so whatever the source is, it then goes in alpha order. Let's talk a minute about your outline. There is a template out on Blackboard, and I can be a stickler for that template. So make sure that your template looks that your speech outline looks identical to the template that I have. Have you used a standard set of symbols? In there, I'm talking about Roman numerals. Write your main points as complete sentences. And make sure that your main points each only have a single idea. You need to have subpoints related to in order to support the main points. And do you have subpoints to support everything? Again, take a look at the template, and what you submit needs to be in exactly that same format as the speech outline template provided in Blackboard. Okay, and that concludes Chapter 12, Part 2.